नमः शिवायेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवप्रसीदेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवात् परन्नेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवोऽहमस्मीति शिवं प्रपद्ये. In the previous satsanga, we saw the 12th shloka where Acharya says, it doesn't matter where you live, your geographical location or the specific setting in which you have chosen to live, that does not matter. By making a particular arrangement, you can't think that you can remain happy forever. For worldly convenience, it is okay, it is good, but ultimately, all the worldly convenience that we are chasing is only to attain peace. But Acharya says that is a different subject altogether. If you want peace, you have to understand how peace and happiness works. And the only way you can be happy is regardless of where you live, if you're able to offer your mind to Parameshwara and you see everything as the same divinity, then you will not see one place as special and one place is not special. You will see the same existence, consciousness, bliss everywhere that you go. And when you start to see the world like this, every place is a temple, every place is a Tirtha Kshetra. When we hear this, it sounds great from a very philosophical perspective, but is it possible to live like this? That's our real question. When we listen to it as a satsanga, it's very great. It's amazing. It makes us feel much better. But practically, when we go back into the world, there is a lot of friction. When we go back into the world, all we see is hatred and attachment and all of these different problems that we have. So many pleasures are also available on the other hand. So how do we see this Bhagavan everywhere? How do we see the divinity everywhere? So the problem really is that the moment we see names and forms, we get deluded. Ultimately, peace comes from seeing the divinity beyond the names and forms, but the truth is we are interacting with names and forms the whole day. So while seeing these names and forms, how do we remain centered in that truth? This is what our rishis encoded into our way of life. If the whole of the Indian traditional way of living has to be described with one statement, it would be this: Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Sarvam, no exceptions. Everything in this world is divine. Swami Vivekananda said, do not approach anyone as anything else other than God. So, how did our rishis bring this into our daily practice? They told us, for now, you hold on to the name and form. It's okay, because right now itself to ask you to go beyond name and form might be difficult. But every name and form that you see, associate it with something divine. For example, every morning after we wake up, there is a shloka that we have to chant even before keeping our foot down, which is Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandale Vishnupatni Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame. It is a stotra dedicated to Bhuma Devi, Mother Earth, where we say, "Oh Mother, I'm going to keep my feet on you because that's the only way I can go about the world. The only way I can engage with samsara is by keeping my feet on you. So I have no option but to do this. So please forgive this mistake that I'm making by stamping on you the entire day because I have no other option." And you see how the attitude changes. It's a simple thing we do every day. What is the first thing we do after we wake up? We get out of bed. But even getting out of bed and putting our feet down, we have to recognize the divinity on in which is manifested as the earth and pay our respect to that divinity before we put our foot there. Then we go to have bath. Before having bath, we generally chant a shloka, Gange cha munai chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalesmin Sanidhim Kuru. The water that we are using to have bath, we don't just see it as water that is flowing from a tap. We pray to Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri, all these purifying rivers, and we say, Jalesmin Sannidhim Guru. Oh, divine rivers, please manifest in this water. So we're not just seeing everyday bath as a process of cleaning ourselves physically, we see it as a dip taken in Ganga. We see every snana is Ganga snana, and it will purify us to that extent if we can see it like that. If you notice what is happening here, we are not transcending the name and form. We are seeing water as water and using it as water. We are seeing the earth as it is, but we are able to give a divine touch to it through this upasana bhav. We are yet to reach the heights of Vedantic understanding where everything is Brahman and nothing else. That will come, where everything is uniformly the same divinity. But the very problem is that we are not able to recognize that unified consciousness. So we hold on to the names and forms for now and see how to divinize them. Then in our daily routine, typically after bath, there is some form of puja, mantra japa, something that we do so that we can connect to this truth. And then we go do our job. Whatever work that we are destined to do, we do it. And if you notice, I've seen so many auto drivers do this. If you are the first customer, you're taking an auto early in the morning and you are the first customer, whatever money that you give them, they will usually have a small murti of their Ishta Devata or their Kula Devata in their autos. They will offer that money there, then they will touch it to their eyes, only then put it into their pocket. Or if you see small shop owners, I've seen this in a lot of places. Every morning they will come. There'll be some Swami photos in their shop. They'll decorate it with new flowers, do aarati, and a lot of shops also have a hundi right in front of that. So if you are the first customer, whatever you give, they will offer it in that hundi and then they will start to work. So everything becomes Devata Aradhana. And after that, they have to do their business, they have to do whatever work they're doing. But everything has this divine touch to it. Everything becomes purified because of this vision of us. We see money as Lakshmi Devi. We don't just see money as a resource that we can use however we want. It is a blessing. It is the Divine Mother herself. We see books as Saraswati Devi. We see everything associated with something divine. That's why we worship everything. We worship plants, we worship trees, we worship animals, we worship the five elements. There is nothing that we do not worship. When you look at an elephant, you don't just see it as an elephant, you see it as a manifestation of Ganapati. You see a monkey, you don't just see it as a monkey, you see it as a manifestation of Anjaneya. You see a child, you don't just see him as a child, you see him as little Krishna. If he's a very well behaved child, you can see him as Ram Lalla. If he's a particularly mischievous child, you can see him as Krishna. If it's a girl, you can see her as Bala Tripura Sundari. Your parents, you can see them as Parvati and Parameshwara. Kalidasa says, Jagataf Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwara. They are our real parents, and it is those parents who have manifested as our own parents. That's why even the Upanishad says, Matradevo Bhava, Pitradevo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. You see that divinity everywhere. Even when we see the different forms of the Divine Mother, for example, when your mother is really angry at you, you can see her as Kali, no problem. When your mother is feeding you, you can see her as Annapurneshwari. When your mother is buying you whatever you want and giving you everything that you want, you can see her as Lakshmi. Because even the mother's anger is coming from a place of love. We can see this even not just in humans, even with animals. Even the sweetest dog, if someone unknown tries to go near her puppies, she will turn very violent. Why? Because that anger is also coming from the love she has towards her puppies. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Matra Rupena Samsthita. That feeling of motherhood is not an earthly manifestation, it is the Divine Mother herself. So, in order to protect her children or in order to discipline them, she can turn into Kali anytime. She can manifest as Kali anytime. But when it's lunchtime, she will immediately turn into Annapurna. When it's time to give something to the child, she will immediately turn into Lakshmi. Like this, even with Parameshwara, you have, when you approach him as a guru, he becomes Dakshinamurti. When you approach him as a father, he becomes that Jagatpita, Parameshwara. But when it's time to protect you, he manifests as Kala Bhairava. When it's time to dissolve the entire universe, he manifests as Rudra. So all of these divine forms, they manifest around us every single day. It's just that we don't learn to see it. We eat 3 times every day and sometimes more, but we eat so mindlessly. We just, most of the time I've seen people eat in such a hurry, but the Shastras teaches even how to eat. You have to be seated, not walking around and eating, not standing and eating. You have to sit down. You have to say a prayer and then mindfully consume this food, knowing that it is Bhagavan himself. It is a form of Bhagavan itself. Annanindhyat tadvratam. The Upanishad says, don't disrespect food. Always give your complete respect to food. And what is that respect? Being mindful of it. If someone has come to your house and while they have come, you are watching TV or you are speaking to the others and not paying attention to them, that is disrespectful. So, similarly, when Bhagavan has manifested as food in order to nourish your body, you have to give it the respect that it deserves. Shastra says you shouldn't talk while eating, you shouldn't do anything else, you should just eat while being completely mindful of it. You have to recognize the divinity that is feeding you. There was an incident in Ramanashram once when they were moving around a lot of sacks of rice, and on the way some grains of rice had fallen down. It was a very, very negligible quantity as compared to the huge sacks of rice that they were moving around. But then they saw Ramana Maharshi was carefully picking up each and every grain of rice, and he was carefully collecting all of it, making sure not even a single grain of rice was wasted. And someone came and asked, Bhagavan, why are you doing this? There's so much rice available. A few grains, if they get wasted, what is going to happen? And he said, for each of each grain of rice, I have to give accounts to Arunachala. I am responsible for each and every grain of rice because he saw everything as Arunachala Swarup. We only see it as a few grains of rice, but the water that has gone in to grow this crop, the earth that sustained this crop for so long, the sun that provided sunlight and helped the crops grow, all of this is Arunachala, and the rice is also Arunachala. So he could never stand to waste anything. Even when we say sun, typically traditionally we say Surya Bhagavan. I've seen very traditional people, when it's a really hot day, they will not say it's a hot day, or the heat is scorching. They will say Surya Bhagavan is shining in all his glory. Because you see, even Surya is Bhagavan. And once we start seeing everything around us as divine, if you see a hill as simply a hill, as a huge rock, then it is not divine. But if you can see a hill and understand that it's divine, you see it as Arunachala, then it makes all the difference. You see a hill, you see it as Govardhanagiri, it makes all the difference. You see your parents only as your parents, it will just be a transaction, a relationship based on duty and based on your bodily relationship. But if you can see them as the primordial parents, Parvati, Parameshwara, then family itself becomes a satsanga. Because every day you're in the presence of Parvati, Parameshwara. When we start living like this and we start seeing the divinity everywhere, in every single thing that is around us, the way our rishis have pointed it out to us, then slowly this truth will start to sink in, that everything and everyone is divine. My guru always says this understanding will mature only with practice. It is not something like, okay, I have understood this for 7 days or 2 weeks or 1 month, I practice this, and then suddenly I will have a breakthrough, and then my understanding will improve, then I can stop living like this. That's not how it works. This is how you have to live. This is just how you have to start living for the rest of your life. And once you start living like that, what the Upanishads are trying to reveal one day will shine in your heart. That truth will reveal itself to you if you can live like this. If you can see that Bhagavan everywhere, you can see the entire world as Parameshwara Swarupa. You can see every man that you meet as Parameshwara, every woman that you meet as the Divine Mother. If this kind of vision can come, regardless of how they are, seeing God only in good people is very easy. But regardless of how they are, regardless of how they treat you, if you can see that divinity everywhere, then Acharya says, for such a person, his mind is always offered to God because he sees everything as God. Then his mind is always thinking about God. Anything that he sees it as a divine manifestation. So his mind is always offered to Bhagavan, and such a person is the happiest person in the world. He is the Parama Yogi, and he is also a very happy and peaceful person. We'll continue this in the next satsang. Shiva Shiva.